shut off.
Okay, folks online, we are checking on the issue with hearing. I'm gonna have to mute it though, because we're getting a bad feedback, but we're checking on your audio. Commissioner Zeldin, we just moved to adopt the agenda as amended. If you're in favor, please raise your hand. Folks online, can you hear me now? Yep. Good, awesome. Thank goodness. Thank you. Okay, with that, I move that we adopt the consent agenda also as amended. All those in favor, commissioners? Commissioner Zeldin, okay, 7-0. Thank you. And this next section is ANC resident forum. It's a 10-15-minute section where we allow residents to talk to the ANC about things that are not on the agenda that we might have missed, anything that's bubbling in the community, any concerns that you have that particularly are not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, come to the mic. Folks online, if you would like to add a comment to this section, raise your hand.
Do I have to hit the button? Is it on?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Hi, I'm Greg Schmidt. I talked to you about historic district issues last meeting. And I thought I'd give you an update on the 3900 block of Morrison Street, which I am christening the People's Republic of Morrison Street. We now have 27 yard signs opposing the designation of our block as a part of the historic district. And I just thought it would be fun. Come take a look, take a walk on the wild side. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else online? I mean, in person, Michaela?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Michaela Platzer, and I do want to raise a issue of concern. I hope everybody can hear me. And that it has to do with the proposed Metrobus service changes, which have been announced, and they're very draconian for our whole entire community. Bottom line is, if this proposal were to go through, they would effectively eliminate, let me use that word, let me say that word again, eliminate the E2, the M4, the L8. I don't know what else. They're basically everything would be eliminated. We sat quietly by and watched them eliminate the E6, which is still a concern for me, because we're basically operating in a bus desert back here. There's absolutely no way to get from Hawthorne, for example, up to Friendship Heights. And frankly, Tenley is even a bit of a challenge, even with the M4, but now they'd like to eliminate the M4. That's going to affect all the seniors at Knollwood, and it's basically going to affect the entire community. The challenge is that there are public hearings this week. There's one tomorrow night at WMATA headquarters at 5, starting at 5 o'clock, with the open house at 5 and a public hearing beginning at 6. The other reason this is a pressing concern is that they're soliciting public comments through March 5th. That doesn't give us very much time to respond. Basically, it's going to affect the entire bus system. And this lovely proposal also has many other deficits. In my opinion, not only will they eliminate most of our bus service, but they're also going to increase the fares by 25%. So less service and greater price increases. And the problem with all of this is that they're really undermining the whole idea of public transit. And public transit, in my opinion, rests on three basic components: frequency, reliability, safety, and a robust system. If you can't get to where you need to go, there's no point in having a bus service. So for example, on the L2, what they're proposing is stopping it at Woodley Park. The rationale being that there's a metro stop there. Now, currently, it goes all the way down to Farragut Square. The problem, of course, is that people don't want to necessarily replicate the metro line. You may want to get off somewhere in the middle. And I know many of us have cars, but not everybody in this community has a car. And if we're very much committed to a community that not only relies on the automobile, but also has public transportation associated with it, well, this isn't going to do the trick. In fact, it's going to undermine things. I don't know what the actual status is of this proposal, but I think it's something we have to investigate. And I'm really asking the ANC to very aggressively weigh in on this issue. So, because this is going to affect everyone. In fact, I noticed on the listserv today, someone had posted a house rental. And in that listing, they noted that it is a mere 12 minutes, it's in Barnaby Woods as a listing, a mere 12 minutes by Metrobus up to Friendship Heights. Problem is, under the cover of COVID, WMATA or Metro eliminated the E6 bus. So that homeowner doesn't even know that the E6 doesn't exist anymore. So it's time to get the word out, it seems to me, and really really oppose this, in my opinion, this proposal. So I'd love to see this on the agenda. Problem is, time is very short to do anything. Thank you.
Chris Reed, and I live at Knollwood. I would wholeheartedly support what she's saying, and I'm just wondering whether you all could really direct some urgent notification to places like Knollwood. I know Knollwood aggressively was opposed to the elimination of the bus before, not only for the seniors, but even more importantly, the employees.
Thank you. We're gonna go to online, Mary Rouse.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. I would like to speak about two issues tonight. One is about the schedule for the ANC addressing the historic district proposal. As you all know, the ANC is not required to weigh in on this proposal. And it's because the Chevy Chase Conservancy asked the ANC to do that, that you all are taking it up. And so in mid-November, Lisa, when I first reached out to you, I had wanted to see if we could get this on the agenda as soon as possible. And in early January, you asked Peter Lynch and Peter Goslin to talk with us about the issue. And so it was agreed that the matter would be taken up on February 12th, and it was. And but since then, there's been no, I had asked it to be taken up again tonight, and it obviously is not. And then I asked Peter Lynch and Peter Goslin. I had heard there might be a special meeting, and they said maybe the 4th and 5th of March. It would be very helpful if that could be ironed down so that we have an idea as a community when this matter will be taken up. I think the matter is about getting the Office of Historic Preservation to the ANC meeting so that they can refute some of the misinformation that's being shared. And I think that the second issue, I just wanted to reiterate, because I know this ANC likes to be heard. I know it likes to be listened to and respected, as all of us do. And I would like to just remind the ANC that without a historic district, and with the proposed matter of right development that the city wants to put in these two new zones, that this ANC will be out in the cold, as will the residents that you all represent, if we don't have an historic district. That is a mechanism for weighing in on new construction, new development in this commercial corridor. And so I just wanted to remind all of you that I know that you want to be respected and heard. This is one of the best ways to do that. Otherwise, You're left commenting on PUDs, which the zoning commission rarely adjusts due to community comment. So the historic district is a really excellent way to have community input on new construction, which will happen with or without a historic district. But with a historic district, this ANC will be able to weigh in. And if the results of that survey that were done about the community center and library have any impact on anyone here, it's that this community cares about its built environment and weighed in very clearly about that. So thank you very much.
Mary, this is Peter Goslin. As you know, we exchanged emails on this subject. We are talking to the Historic Preservation Office. We have this on our agenda for discussion a little later tonight. I think we're going to schedule a special meeting tentatively the 4th. And Zach, I know you're not going to be able to make that, but given other commissioners not being able to make the 5th, we're going to see if we can zero in on a date a week from now to have this discussion. As I said in the email, because the issue is so complex, so multifaceted, we thought it better to do at a special meeting rather than at a regular meeting. So that's the answer to the question, your first point. Thank you.
That's a great idea, Peter. And I would just add, if you could also plan for another meeting or two on the subject, if you can, because I think this community is anxious to get this matter addressed. And I know that people want to be heard on it. So thank you.
Len Chambon on Legation Street. Can you just add, as part of that special meeting, that the Historic Preservation Office explained to us the pluses and minuses of historic preservation zones? I've lived here for 40 years and heard misinformation about it for 40 years.
Let's go online. Elizabeth Nagy.
Yeah, hi, thank you very much. I just wanted to raise with the ANC and raise for people who are listening online in the community that the RFP for Chevy Chase Commons that was recently issued doesn't actually require affordable housing on the site. So there is provision for putting it elsewhere. It suggested a couple of different places to put it. But the bottom line is we may lose Chevy Chase Commons and our park and our green space and our pickleball court that's so important to Commissioner Fruman. And in return for that, we will not even get affordable housing on the site, which I think is a shame. And I think the community should feel duped by this. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that said, we're going to move on to our agenda, DC plug.
So let's just see if Peyton Manning, could you put your hand up? Yes, that is his name. And we'll elevate you so you could do this presentation. Can you find it?
Yeah, when he raises his hand, I'll see him.
Peter, you need to hit your mic. Peyton Manning, could you put your hand up so we could find you and elevate you to co-host so you could do your presentation?
Got it.
Or and anybody else on your PEPCO team?
Yes, can you hear me, commissioners?
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, if you could elevate Raisha Quarry, she's actually going to be sharing her screen. I've been caught out in the field, so I will go to the presentation with her.
Okay, where is she? Got it. Raisha, you should be able to share.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
And could you just get the picture centered in your screen there and maybe?
Absolutely. I'll make sure I put it on presentation mode. Better.
Good.
All
Good.
right.
Go for it before we go on to something else and talk for 2 hours.
Okay. Peyton, you all set? Or you want me to give
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm good to go.
All right, I won't take too much of your time. I know you guys are very familiar with DC Plug after we've done the work on Oregon Avenue. So we have another feeder coming to your area, this time feeder 467. And right now we're still in the design phase. We'll go over the background in a little bit. Oh, sorry, my name is Raisha Corey. I'm with DC Plug Communications team. I have talked to you guys in the past on the electrical phase of 14900, but we're just gonna talk about the design phase of feeder 467.
Can I interrupt once? And if you could talk a little slower and a
Oh.
little more distinctly, it's very hard to understand what you're saying here.
I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. I do tend to talk fast. Thank you for telling me. Okay. My name is Raisha. I work with the communications for DC Plug, and we're going to talk about feeder 467. I'm going to give everyone a quick background on DC Plug. We've been at this since 2012 with Mayor Vincent Gray's office, and a task force was then created in 2013, and DC and PEPCO decided to work together on this project to create the DC Plug initiative. The whole purpose is to really combat those large storms that were knocking out the powers in DC. So we've picked the most vulnerable lines in DC to underground them so that we have a less likelihood of losing power during those large storms. So the budget is paid for by PEPCO, $250 million. Then the district portion was $187.5 million, and then DDOT's portion was $62.5 million. The multi-year program, the multi-year program is 20 feeders all throughout the city, except for in wards 1, 2, and 6, just because most of those lines are already undergrounded. Like I said, we have done some construction in the past already for DC Plug. We have energized one which was in this area, which was 14900 and feeder 308. We have another one that's going to be energized later next month, which is in feeder 368. And we're talking about feeder 467 in the Chevy Chase neighborhood. And we're still in the design phase for this one. So just so you guys can understand where it is in relation to where you all may live, it's around Livingston Street Northwest, Nevada Avenue, Nebraska, and a little bit of 39th for feeder 467. And then this is just kind of like an education summary was created via the Public Service Commission. And this is just our promise to you all what we will do during the construction phase to keep you all abreast of the project throughout. So we have a pre-construction meeting, and then we do a 30-day notification, a 15-day notification, a 7-day notification, as well as you'll start to see those 72-hour notices up prior to construction on every street. We do send out resident letters as needed, transformer enclosure letters where to those residents that live near those transformer enclosures that will be installed near their homes. And then we also send out the schedule to those who want to be on our listservs as well. We have traffic advisories whenever there's any street closures or anything of that nature. And then we also try to attend the ANC meetings regularly. So if you guys have any questions or concerns, we can do it during the announcements and give you guys an update on that stuff as well. We have a dedicated outreach team that's assigned to each feeder during the design phase. It's Peyton Manning and I believe Jam Kendrick. And then we also have a 24-hour hotline that's listed above. And we have the electrical construction phase, which is the portion where you'll get notifications based off of if your home if you will lose power at any port. Now that we're still well into the design phase, so that's pretty far off for you guys, but just to give you a heads up, we always get 72-hour notices, and you will get those in letter form on your door as well as phone calls, unless you all are on the no-call list for any reasons. And that's just a sample of some of the collateral that you'll see go out from us. All right, so in the design phase, our next steps, this is our just a brief open house. Just a brief overview of DC Plug. We will be hosting a virtual open house for everyone in the community, not just the ANC, and we'll go in depth. I'll bring on engineers and you can ask all your technical questions. You'll get a notification, you'll get invited to that via door hangers, and you might see signs in your neighborhood letting you all know. And of course, we'll reach out to the ANC to help us out with that. And then we'll follow up after that with meetings with those people who will have those TE enclosures that I mentioned before outside of their homes, just to give them, you know, a heads up of what it is and educate them on that. And then you'll start to see signage coming around. Again, we're really far out on that. And that's really all I have. Oops, sorry, guys. That's not really all I have. If you guys have any questions, I want you guys to go over to www.dcpluginfo.com. If you click on feeder 467 and say add me to the listserv list, that will give us a ping to add you guys to the list so that you can get the schedule and you'll know everything that's coming up, and we'll invite you to our open house as well. Feel free to email questions@dcpluginfo.com or call our hotline at 1-844-758-4146. And that's it for me.
Okay.
Amazing. Real quick, if I could chime in too. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, because I've been out in the field all day. So just wanted to kind of summarize just for everybody what the DC Plug initiative is. Commissioners, I know you've mostly heard of it before because of these other feeders, but in case anybody in the community isn't sure, it's a joint venture with PEPCO and DDOT to underground the power lines, the primary distribution line. So once the project's completed, the primary lines will be undergrounded, the roadway will be repaved, but you will still see remaining poles there that do have the utility lines and the secondary distribution lines going to individual homes. The goal of the project is to reduce outages due to the storms. And I know Ray touched on outages during the electrical phase. Really, you just have to worry about one main outage when they're relocating the power from the lines up top to the underground lines at the bottom. And it's usually just a couple of hours. But like Ray said, the outreach team during the construction phase will be out and notifying you 72 hours in advance, at least, of that outage. And I'm sorry, commissioners, I don't know if you have any other questions.
Peyton, I just want to tell the people here and the people online about the conversation you and I had about this today. First of all, Peyton said that this is just at the design phase. We're not going to see actual work until maybe 2026. The other thing, just so people know, the place where PEPCO has done this most extensively is Oregon Avenue, and yet I jog on Oregon Avenue and there are cables down along the street. And I asked Peyton about that, and not only did he know about it, it turns out to be in front of his parents' house. And those are not PEPCO cables. And so I asked the obvious question, if PEPCO is going to the expense of putting conduit underground, why don't they lease it to Verizon and other users, cable users? And he said that apparently these cables, the PEPCO cables have so much power in them, they're so hot that other users don't want to put their cables down there. So in any case, those are the two tidbits that I got from my conversation with him. Just to review again, this is 39th Street between Northampton and Legation, a little bit of Legation, Livingston from a little past 39th to almost Broad Branch, and Nevada from Nebraska to, I don't know what that is, Oliver, but it's got a long fuse. We won't see construction until years from now. Thanks. Do any people have questions? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question.
Great.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, yes, thank you. I have a question. Is there fiber optic going into the undergrounding of this particular feeder?
Are you referring to like Verizon communication cables?
Or PEPCO?
So the PEPCO, I don't believe they're fiber optic. It's just the only lines from PEPCO that'll be underground. It will be what you see, the top, I believe, 3 or 4 lines on the poles that are existing now. And those are just the primary distribution lines. I don't believe those are fiber optic. Those will be undergrounded, as well as like the different transformers that you may see on the poles.
Great. And just quick follow-up. This is very geeky. but just while you're here, do you happen
Sure.
to know if you're putting distribution automation equipment, communications and sensors on that particular feeder?
You are asking me a question that is outside my pay grade. So I can, if you, if you want to shoot me an email, I can definitely get your response to that. My
Okay.
thought is no. But if you don't mind sending me an email, I can get you, or I can, get the right answer from the right people.
Yeah,
and
sure.
back-
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So just so everybody knows, my personal email, you can email, like Ray said, info at, or questions. What is it, Ray? Are you still on? I'm sorry. It's not up in front of me right now.
It's questions at dcplug.com, dcpluginfo.com, I'm sorry. But
Questions at dcpluginfo.com. But my personal email is Peyton, Peyton at TBA connects, CONNECTS.com. And I'll put that in the chat too, so everybody has it. And please, if anything comes up with this feeder during the design phase or construction, please reach out to me and let me know.
Thank you.
Okay, just by the way, to Raisha and Peyton, please send us your presentation and we'll post it on the ANC website. Now, we have two questions here in the room. Let's get to those, but we need to move on from this subject. So very quickly, you were going to speak.
This is Roberta Reed, and I was just wondering how solar power initiatives that are going on impact this type of project. There's several major initiatives that are underway, which should significantly save power in the future.
Sure. So again, I don't have a direct answer to that. I mean, so this is separate of the solar power programs that are going on. This is just purely Pepco undergrounding their existing infrastructure to boost it and to make it more resilient in the face of storms. It's not necessarily connected to any of the solar power programs. I do believe Pepco has some solar programs, taking solar power from homes to redistribute it to their grid. Again, if you want to email me, I can try to get you more information on that. But I hope that kind of helps answer your question, but I know it's not a perfect answer.
So this is a quick question about the design phase, not the construction phase.
Okay.
I live on this 3600 block of Legation Street, which has been a dead zone forever. I can watch the lights come back on Chevy Chase Parkway and on Nevada, and I'm dead for another week compared to other people. In 1989, we had to get dry ice for 2 weeks, despite our fact that we were pointing out people who lived on the block were 90 years old. How do I know when you don't have a design line going through my block that this is going to solve my problem? Who do I contact in DC Plug to find out?
Send me an email, please. Send me an email. Send me an email. Like I said, Peyton at tbaconnects.com. I will get you an answer for that. And we'll have our engineers and everybody on our public meeting when we hold it, likely in April or May. If you live in the area, we typically do like a 2 to 3 block radius and we come to the ANC to announce it. You'll get that flyer. If you send me an email, I'll make sure that I send you that flyer when we do actually have the meeting scheduled. But right now we don't have it on the books, but we're looking at April or May. And it'll be a virtual meeting and I'll be sure to make sure I share that information as soon as I have it.
also, if you get a chance, go to the website and just click on feeder 467 and you can say add me to the list and we'll get you that information as well, whichever is easiest.
Thank you, DC Plug. I want to go to and see, I see Lieutenant Olivier is on the line with MPD. Lieutenant Olivier, did you have an update for the community? Or are you just hanging out with us tonight?
I have an update for you all. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just going to go over quick overview of 201 and where we stand. I'm going to let you know what we've done. And I'm going to turn it over to the traffic guy because I had a lot of complaints about traffic last meeting that we convened. I'm going to turn it over to the traffic officer, Mr. Officer Anthony McAwee. Okay, so right now where we stand as far as 201, our theft from autos, stolen vehicles are down. However, our retail crimes are up. They're up on paper, and let me explain what I mean by that. Lately, we have been reinvestigating a lot of crimes, the theft from the store, mainly CVS and Safeway on Connecticut Avenue. And we made a couple of arrests. And we had to put some of these crimes back on the book, meaning that they weren't reported. But after we review hours and hours of video, we realized it's the same people. So we had to go ahead and get the numbers for them on this year's stats and to make the case. So far, the prosecutors, they're going to prosecute the one guy that was responsible for 7 of those thefts. We have another individual we're getting warrants for 56 of them from June of last year till now, 56 retail thefts, not only in 201, but the upper end, 201, 202, and 203. So we're doing some work on that. So we have seen a shift also in the retail theft situation from Connecticut Avenue. Lately, I don't know if anyone noticed, but there've been a stronger police presence out there on Connecticut Avenue, and now we see that the individuals shifting back into the neighborhoods again. I believe in a few days we had at least 4, maybe 5 garage. They broke into the garage and steal equipment from the garage, the detached garage mainly. So that's a shift we have seen. My officers are still out there putting out the flyers, still out there patrolling the neighborhoods. I don't know if you're seeing them, but they're out there doing the best they can. And that's basically where we stand with this. We've been changing up our strategies on tactics and what we're doing. Right now, it seems to me that as far as with the retail stuff, having that officer up there on Connecticut Avenue is actually working. Like I said, we've made arrests up there and we've deterred them. The suspects, the individuals out there are getting very savvy. They waiting to see where the officers go, and then they run in and do a grab, grab and run type of situation. So we're trying to get as much officers out there. I've had a last meeting, we had a lot of requests for traffic out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to our officer, the traffic officer, Anthony McElwee, real quick. He could let you know what he have done, where he have done it. He could give you an assessment on 201 traffic, a brief assessment on 201 traffic. After that, if anyone have any questions, I'll be glad to answer that.
Hi, good evening, Lieutenant of the Air and everybody from the ANC. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. My name's Tony McElwee. I'm one of the traffic officers in the 2nd District. Lieutenant Olivier had asked me to go to a few areas within your PSA. And I went over there and spent approximately 13 hours in the last 30 days, or I would say the last 25 days. I'll give you a breakdown of what I saw out there and my actions that I took. I wrote a total of 49 notices of infractions, basically tickets. Here is a breakdown. Tennessee and Oregon Avenue was one of the areas that I was asked to target, and that was for the stop sign. And I wrote 31 notices of infraction out there. You do have a stop sign problem there. It wasn't bad, but I did write 12 for stop signs, and the other 31 notices of infractions were associated with seatbelts or not having insurance or registrations. Tennessee and 29th Street, I wrote 2 stop sign violations. Northampton and Oregon, I had 1 stop sign violation. Speeding, I did go out to 2600 through the 2800 block of Northampton. I didn't see anything really happening out there. Really, it wasn't a lot of volume of traffic. I was out there around 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Also Rittenhouse, 2,700 to 2,900 Rittenhouse, and 2,700 to 3,000 Tennyson. I didn't observe much traffic. I will break it up and go out there at different times. I'll try in the morning. Maybe I can get some input from some of you folks. You can give me some your opinions. What time would be a better time for me to be out there? And I was on Western Avenue. I know it wasn't on your chart, but I wrote 1 speeding, and I had 1 stop sign violation at Western and Nevada. And on my way out to your good community, I had a red light violation that I observed at Oregon and Military. Now, you may not see me out there. I operate an unmarked car, but I do make a little bit of noise with my sirens. And I'm going to continue focusing real hard on Tennessee and Oregon. And next month, hopefully we'll see those, with our visibility out there, the people know that or the commuters will know that we're out there monitoring that stop sign. Because that was the worst thing that I really saw out there. And I didn't see any high speed going through. Just basically your California rolls, slowing down and not coming to a complete stop. And if you were wondering what the tickets are, it's a $100 ticket, and I believe 2 points. With that said, I'm happy to listen to some of your concerns, complaints, and recommendations.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Zeldin.
Yeah, wait for him to come back. Hi there.
Hello.
So we did speak about Western Avenue last meeting, specifically between Stevenson and going toward Oregon, especially in the evening after sunset. So that is a high traffic corridor, and cars go very fast because there's nothing to slow them down from Stevenson all the way to that semicircle. I forget what it's called. What's it called, Lisa? Where it starts at your district.
I'm sorry, where are you at? You said which streets?
What's that? The little semicircle that's on Western. Where the Pinehurst Circle. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't remember the name. So between Stevenson and Pinehurst Circle, that's been a high speed zone, especially at night. So if attention can be given to that, officer, that would be appreciated, and let us know what you find out.
Okay, so on Stevenson, all the way up to Pinehurst, you're talking about Stevenson, correct?
Yeah, there's nothing that slows traffic down on that. I think it's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and my guess that cars are going around 40.
Okay, all right. I made a notation of that, and that's in the evening. Appreciate that, Mr. Zeldin. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for
And we have one in person.
safe.
And I want to jump in.
Another place to watch is Pinehurst Circle. Right there, nobody stops at that. Very few people stop at that stop sign. Also, you should take note of Aberfoyle and Barnaby Street. There's a stop sign there. You wouldn't know it, but people fly through that stop sign quite a bit. And there are a lot of children in the area. So I know we have some traffic calming measures that were put in place on Barnaby Street, but Aberfoyle doesn't seem to have any. And people really drive very quickly down the street. And on Western Avenue, that's where the school buses are. And so there are a lot of kids there.
All right, so Aberfoyle and Barnaby at the stop sign running. And you said there's a stop sign that I did see today at Pinehurst Circle, right there coming off onto the Western. Am I correct?
Yeah. And officer, that's sort of like the part of what I'm talking about on Western. They go Stevenson and they go toward Oregon, and they just sort of blow through the circle that this resident is speaking about too. And so it really moves very fast, all the way down to like Beach, I think.
Okay. Also, while I have, are there any more questions and recommendations?
Yeah, we have 2 from commissioners and 1, I believe, in the audience, virtual. Commissioner Sherman, then Nash, then I believe John Higgins has a question.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you. This is really good news. We really appreciate your vigilance, your presence in the community. I would say that there are a few things that generate more concerns in the community than traffic safety, people running stop signs, people speeding. The areas that you noted where you've done surveillance and have written tickets are largely in my area. So I'm hugely appreciative. Tennyson and Oregon in particular, that's a dangerous intersection. You noted the tickets that you've written there and the people that you've stopped. So thank you very much for that. If I could get from you your report, I'll pull it off of the recording. But if you already have something written up about the number of infractions, the tickets you've written and so forth, basically what you've just reported, I will share that via my newsletter, my weekly newsletter to my constituents, because many of them will be very interested to hear this. And thank you again.
All right, Commissioner Sherman, correct?
Yeah.
I'm going to put my email in the chat room as soon as I complete my my little presentation here, and go ahead and email me, and I can pull the stats up from our command center for you, and I'll send them to you.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioner Nash?
Yeah, I also, this is Commissioner Nash, and I'm sorry. First, I do want to thank you for your enforcement work, even though it's not in my district, but I'm hoping that might change. What is your name, though? I didn't catch it.
I'm Anthony McElwee.
Anthony
McElwee, and I'll put that in the chat room in a little bit.
Okay. Now, one area in my district where I've heard a lot of concern from my constituents is 27th Street between Broad Branch and Military. This is a hilly, windy street that was closed for a long time. Commuters are using it now that Broad Branch is closed, and the people there are terrified to go out on their own front yards because it's such a dangerous street and people are speeding there. So any kind of traffic enforcement you could do there, the people there would be very grateful, I'm sure.
All right, so I'm clear on this, Commissioner. 27th Street between Broad Branch and what was the second?
And
point?
Military, between Broad Branch and Military, it's right along Rock Creek, the edge of Rock Creek Park. So there are only houses on one side of that street. It's a beautiful street, but if you go fast, it's quite dangerous. It's hilly and curvy.
All right, I'll get out there a couple times within the next 30 days, and we'll come back out when I see you next meeting.
Okay, thank you for your service.
And last time, oh, I'm sorry, go on.
I wanted to say, Commissioner Sherman, you had mentioned about traffic isn't a problem, a big problem. I'll tell you what, other than theft from autos, traffic is really your #1 complaint in your community, at least in the 2nd district. We get a lot of traffic complaints, just like you're saying, stop sign running, speeding. So I just want to let you know, it is we do know there's a lot of traffic complaints out there, and we're trying to address them to the best of our ability, but certainly, traffic is a big issue.
Okay, and last comment, John Higgins.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm a resident of Knollwood, so I'm familiar with Tennyson and Oregon, and like Commissioner Sherman, I'd like to thank you for your work out there. I was wondering if right at that corner, any additional signage might be in order. It's pretty well signed, but I'm thinking when you're coming down from the north and approaching Tennyson at the Chatsworth apartment complex, in that half a block there, would there be, you can check it out to see if any additional signage might work there.
You're talking on Oregon Avenue?
On Oregon Avenue, approaching the intersection from the north.
Well, any good police officer would tell you, we love signage. Some of the neighbors don't, but as much signage.
I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that in my time on this commission.
So you can never really have enough signs, but some people think it could be too many. But yeah, we always love to see signs, warning. It's great for when we go to court if they adjudicate the tickets. But we'll always take more signage. But out of all fairness, I think you do have pretty good signs out there. The speed limit signs are out there. But if you want to add some more, you won't get any objection from us here at MPD.
It's important for our residents, but it's also important just for the neighborhood. A lot of people, dog walk and just walk for recreation in the park at that intersection. So it's more than just our apartment complex.
Well,
But
we're gonna
thank you
definitely-
thank you for your efforts. We appreciate it.
Thank you. We're definitely, as I said, you're gonna see, Oregon and Tennyson. I'm gonna glue myself there quite a bit. I did see a lot of pedestrian traffic. I do see a lot of dog walkers that it goes right
Yep.
over into the
Yep.
park. So, I don't
Thank
see
you.
too much speeding, but the stop signs, we definitely gonna work on for you.
Okay. Thank you, MPD. We're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, but Lieutenant and Officer McElway, thank you so much. And just to let you know, Lieutenant, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, we had someone from MPD go door to door on 31st Street. We might have had a theft from auto around that same time. And they put flyers on each car reminding people not to leave packages in the car. So just want to say thank you for that. Every reminder is helpful. And the service that you guys give us up here is tremendous. So really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you. Thank you.
One thing I like to add to that, I'm happy to see that you all are seeing them out there putting out the flyers. We do have the Amazon lock boxes now up front of the district. Don't even have to enter the building. You could just have the stuff sent out there. I know it's a little ways out, but just so the community knows. And you all have a great.
Great. Thank you. Great reminder.
Bye.
Okay, thank you. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Commissioner Zeldin for a BZA special exemption application for 6100 33rd Street Northwest. And Commissioner Zeldin, I don't know if your folks are online or if they're here in the room.
Yeah, so Rachel or Elizabeth, you here?
Got it.
Hi, Michael, we're here.
Okay.
Thank you for
And,
having us.
This is a request for a special exemption, rear yard. I went out and visited it and walked it through with the homeowners and the architect. It seems rather benign, but because of the sort of curious structure of their yard, it requires a special exemption. So if you guys can walk through it and let us see the schematics of it, that would really help. Bill, are you going to take care of it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so he's the architect. Just speak up a little bit louder, Bill.
I'm gonna share my screen.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Bill Putnam. I'm representing Elizabeth Berta and Rachel Barrick at 6100 33rd Street. They are looking to add a one-story addition to their rear of their house, which will be a screen porch. The rear of their house in this image is to the right and is actually abutting the alley. And you'll see that more clearly as we look at a site plan.
So Bill, can I just interrupt you 1 second? Just so the people who are, the commissioners are watching, it looks like the front of the house is where that door with the white triangle is, and that you'd be looking at it at the side where the building is, but it actually, the front of the house is off to the left, and this is the rear, right?
We are currently looking at a side yard.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying, but it looks like the front door.
Correct. Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So for zoning reasons, the rear yard is to the right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, the relief we're requesting is to be able to build in the rear yard. This zone has a 25-foot required rear yard between the rear lot line and the, I guess, deepest wall in the yard. And currently it is non-conforming. The garage sits at 19.4 feet, and we're looking to make that decrease that to 11.4 feet with this addition. So here's some more images. You'll see the garage here with the car in the driveway. The garage this is the rear yard. The lower left image is a one-story addition to the original house that houses their kitchen right now. And the addition would come directly off of that off of that wall. And then again, an image of the garage. The site plan, you can see the addition is shaded in pink. And you can see how it is extending past the garage by 8 feet. And you can also get a better idea that the front yard is on Rittenhouse Street, and the rear yard is up against the alley. These are existing plans and elevations. Here we're looking at a first floor plan. This dashed line is the required setback, 25 feet. This dashed line to the right is the property line. And you can see how we are moving, we are increasing the house 8 feet towards that rear property line. This is a roof plan showing the same thing. And this is a view, the top image is from 33rd Street. You can see this low picket fence is on the street side of the driveway. This higher privacy fence is replacing an existing privacy fence. And you can see that the addition sits above that. And then you can see in the lower elevation the size of it as well. We are keeping the west wall will be flush with the existing west wall. So we won't be moving any closer to the neighbors or going into the side yard at all. And the roof line will stay the same as well as the existing. And finally, you see the existing and the siding of the existing here. And then the screen porch, you can see how the roof line continues and takes on the same hip shape that is currently there. As a note, we have notified the adjacent neighbors on both Rittenhouse to the west, and then also across the alley. Both neighbors have given support for the project so far.
And I would add in my visit to it, what is proposed is really not visible from the street. So it's not interfering with any sight lines at all or any sunlight for any of the adjacent neighbors. So are there any questions from any of the commissioners?
It's Peter Gosselin. Just the usual question, whether you have support from your neighbors, any problems with your neighbors?
No, the neighbors, the two neighbors adjacent on Rittenhouse and then across the alley have given support. We are waiting on letters of support that we will file with the BZA. And the rest of the neighbors have been notified via the BZA process. So everybody within a 200-foot radius has been notified. And a letter has been sent out to them with a link or, with the case number so they can look up the drawings. But we have not heard of any opposition to the project.
Michael, you want to move for a vote?
Yeah, there's just one question in the chat about whether there'll be any impact on trees, and the answer is no, there should not be any impact on any of the major trees in that area. So I'd like to move for a vote. Second. Everyone who's in favor, can they raise their hand? At least I can't see everybody, so if you can keep tab for me, that'd be helpful.
Yep, and can you raise your hand if you're in favor?
Me?
7-0. Yeah, you got to vote. I would think you want to vote on your presentation. Okay,
Yeah.
motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks, Rachel.
Thank you, Commissioner. We appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
And next part of the agenda, we'll turn it over to Commissioner Sherman for a alley closing application for 5931 Utah Avenue.
Excellent. Thank you. Josh Kern is the party in question. Josh, why don't you come up and stand in front of this microphone? You're going to have to kind of stand and deliver here. Great that you're here in person. Welcome.
Thank you
Great
so
to
much.
see you. All the commissioners received the information in advance. This concerns closure of a public alley that adjoins Josh's property at 5931 Utah Avenue. The alley runs between his property and the Episcopal Center for Children. The process, if you read the somewhat long document that I also sent you on process, is very long, and ANC review and approval is part of that very long process. I can, if you let me share my screen, I can pull up the schematic, the plat, so that everyone can see what we're talking about. All right. So Josh, why don't you just walk us through this? Tell us what this represents. You're the applicant here. You know it, of course, much better than I.
Absolutely.
Your attorney is not with you. Is that correct?
I think they are.
Okay.
Martin and Sarah, I think, are on the Zoom. So let me
Okay.
just quickly introduce myself, and then
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to them. But my name is Josh Kern. I live at 5931 Utah Avenue, as Commissioner Sherman said. First, I want to thank all the commissioners for all their hard work supporting the community. I just moved into the community with my family in June of last year, although I've lived in the district for 29 years, 20 of them in the LaJoy Park community. So this is the property that I purchased last June. The prior owners of the property actually did the lion's share of the work in terms of submitting the application for the alley closure. This is what's commonly referred to as a ghost alley. The fence line runs along the very south side. So there's the line that's farthest down on the page. It looks solid. That's actually the fence line. And then where you see the diagonal stripes, about 4 to 5 feet wide, is the ghost alley, which is actually inside of the property. Because it's all fenced in and part of the property, there's no actual usage of this ghost alley. And I'm going to turn it over to Martin and Sarah to explain more about the process. But this has been an application that's been ongoing for more than a year, I think maybe even closer to 2 years. And as Commissioner Sherman said, it's quite a long process, but I think we're getting close now to the end of it. And part of the process is to get a recommendation from the ANC, which is why we're here tonight. So Martin and Sarah, if you're here, please chime in. Thank you.
I am here. If you can hear me.
Yep, we can.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm Marty Sullivan, counsel for Mr. Kern. This application was actually filed by the previous owner of the property, Ms. Rathbone, and her husband. And then when they sold the property, Mr. Kern decided to keep the application going. I was just going to show you the same plat that Commissioner Sherman had there. The original application that Ms. Rathbone applied for actually included closing the alley in the back, but there was pushback from DPW on that. So now it's just on the side of the house. And we had some questions with Verizon. They thought maybe there was a line within that area, but it's not. It's outside that area. They confirmed that. So there's nothing under there, no utilities that need to be taken care of. So now we're just waiting on some more agency comments. And once those are all done, the surveyor will send the package, a legislation package, to the council, and it'll go through that process and hopefully eventually become closed. And then the neighboring property is in support. It's the ECC, Episcopal Center for Children, and they've also agreed to cede their claim to the half of the alley that's adjacent to their property. It's only 4 feet wide at one. It's like 4.2 at one side and 5 feet wide on the other side. That's all I have to add. If you have any questions for me, thanks.
Let me just second what Mr. Sullivan just said. I've also spoken to ECC, Stephanie Nash, and they concur with this. So no issues with the neighboring party.
Yep.
Anything else on this, Josh? I know.
I don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward, but
It's pretty straightforward, but commissioners, any questions?
Just very quickly. So ECC is beyond the double line, below the double line. Is that
exactly right.
So
Correct.
we heard about, we've heard about this property before.
You have.
We spoke to the previous owners. right?
Yeah,
Okay, fine,
yeah.
fine,
Meredith
fine.
Rathbone and Stephen Bocanegra, they were the original applicants, as Mr. Sullivan and Josh has said. Yeah. Yep.
Commissioner Nash.
What, do you know what the original purpose of this public alley that's 4 feet wide was? What, was it for people to walk on?
It's a good question. I actually have no idea, but maybe Martin or Sarah might know.
I don't know. Maybe they intended to put some utility in there. Verizon is outside that line by a few feet. So it doesn't seem wide enough to be for any pedestrian purpose to me, but we don't really know. It's probably been there a long time.
And when you look at it, it looks like it's part of his property now. So it's just a little strip of land that was never so designated, and that's what this is about. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
I just have a question about the ANC. Are we advising the DC Council or a certain agency or multiple?
Mr. Sullivan, why don't you address the role of the ANC approval?
Yeah, it's just basically to the surveyor. So I can give you that information on how you might want to address that letter. But we filed an application with the surveyor. The surveyor waits for agency comments and ANC comments. And so if you could, we'd love the agency to issue a resolution in support or a letter in support to the surveyor's office referencing this application.
Okay, so what I will do, if all the commission members are in agreement, is draft the resolution for the commission's approval. And pending that actual text, I'll move that we approve this now, unless there are other questions. Do I have a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Commissioner Zeldin, 7-0, motion carried.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Very good.
Commissioner Sherman. Thank you,
Great.
Commissioners.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Mr. Sullivan. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Thank you. And we will keep with Commissioner Sherman and add Commissioner Zeldin to discuss Department of Buildings, neighbor notification and building inspections for 6116 and 6118 30th Street and 2717 Tennyson and 34th Place at Rittenhouse.
Right. A number of problematic properties in our ANC that we're going to be talking about tonight. Right. Just drop out of this thing. Okay. Very good. So first of all, let me acknowledge that we have two representatives from the Department of Buildings on the line. Dion Williams, whom I had notified the commission would be attending tonight and representing the Department of Buildings. And I think Janelle Williams, two Williams. I don't think they're related, but they're both on the call. So Dion, if you would just raise your hand or acknowledge where you are so we can say hello to you and recognize that you're part of this conversation, and Janelle as well. Can we find them on the screen?
Hello. I've unmuted. I'm not clear about how to raise my hand sometimes when
Here's
I
Janelle. Okay.
But this
All right.
is Janelle Williams. I'm an account manager for wards 1 and 3. Dion is currently managing 2 and 4. I do know that she's on another meeting that is happening simultaneously, so she might not be able to unmute and come on, but we're both present.
Okay, fantastic. And also, I believe there's a representative, Kelly Hunt, from Councilmember Louis George's office. They have been very much involved in one of these properties, 34th Place, and also been supportive of 2717 Tennyson and also 6116 to 6118 30th Street. So here's the deal with these properties. Each is a different story, but each has common elements. They've been inspected about 1,000,001 times. And the neighbors surrounding these properties have serious concerns about whether these inspections are getting the job done and identifying whether or not these are all truly within building and zoning codes. Department of Buildings, and in fairness to Janelle and their team, They have been very cooperative and very helpful in securing further inspections of these properties. But questions remain. And folks in the neighborhood who see these properties wonder, in fact, if they do meet code, notwithstanding affirmations that they do. So the purpose of this hearing, this discussion tonight, is to bring this up to the level of the commission, create greater visibility around these, because for each of these, something more has to happen. So what I'd like to do to begin this is to call on members of the community who have been very much involved in trying to help us. And if I, and Michael Zeldin, Commissioner Zeldin, if you would like to say anything before we jump in, what I'd like to do is kind of go in turn to each of these properties and call on Representatives Nina for 34th Place, Bob Sheffield for Tennyson, and then Claudia Russell is going to help us look at the properties on 30th Street.
Yeah, and that's fine, Bruce. I would just say to DOB that 34th Place is ongoing. The other ones are maybe a little bit more historic in that it seems that, or they're fait accomplis, but 34th Place, they are just getting ready to pour foundations. And we have deep concerns about the front yard setback and the ADU in the back. We do not think they conform, and we are trying to get second sets of eyes on this because I'll speak for myself personally. I'm not confident that the decision about them was made properly.
Right.
Can I interject for just a second, Bruce? Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
I want to say that Michael Brown, who is our Deputy Chief Building Official, is also on the line. We conducted a recent inspection of the property and as it relates to the setbacks and the ADU, and the property isn't currently at a point where we can say that they have violated the setbacks. Their current excavation is in line, and until they build a structure, they won't be in violation of those setback codes. And I've emailed that out to the conglomerate who's deeply concerned about this property. I share your concerns based upon the raise issues that were brought up last year, as well as the legal construction surrounding that raise. But it's one of those where we can't be preemptively citing them with issues until they build something that's in violation.
Okay.
Well, but Bruce, could just be just 1 second. I'm just sorry about that. The permits were granted with respect to both the ADU and the front yard setback. And they have marked it and they are pouring concrete so you can see where the front of the house is going to be, which is not in alignment with any of the houses on the enclave. And so I'm not sure what you're saying, that they have to build the structure up above the foundation before you can take action. It's very visible. All you can do is see where the marks are, and you see that they're not in compliance with what we think should be the manner in which front yard setbacks are determined in this semicircle.
So Michael, let's do this. And Janelle, if you don't mind, I'd like to proceed in a reasonably sort of sequenced and systematic fashion here, because there are people in the room and people on the call who have no idea what we're talking about. I want to make sure there's some context for this conversation. So what I'd like to do for 34th Place at Rittenhouse is, since we're on that topic already, is have Nina Dodge, who lives in that cul-de-sac, give us a 2 or 3 minute overview. And Nina, if you can keep it to that, to set the stage for what we're discussing here so everyone has some context. Okay? Nina, go ahead.
Okay, sure. And thank you all of DOB for being here, and our council member Janice's office staff as well. Thank you very much. And Bruce and Michael as well. And Bruce, please stop me if I go on too long. It's unfortunately what I do. But okay, quickly, an initial plan for a construction on 34th Place, which is a semicircle. It's not two parallel lines of buildings along a street. It's a cul-de-sac semicircle. So there are no planes lines, as it were. Was building supposedly on the old house But so that plan was to go up 3 stories with a flat roof apartment style on a small cul-de-sac with cottage style buildings. Needless to say, we're very worried, and the old setbacks applied, so they're very narrowly spaced buildings, and that was to have taken those narrow setbacks up very high. Now, the developer cheated on the tear down, and he lost his right to grandfather old setbacks from the old building. His permit was revoked, and he started afresh with a new plan proposal to build new construction. In fact, a much larger set of structures. The main building, as well as an ADU, 2,000 square feet above a garage. None of these houses have 2,000 square feet of living space, I must note. The Department of Buildings was helpful with the inspections that ultimately resulted in the revocation of the original permit. However, we had a very bad experience with Department of Buildings in the middle of that, where when neighbors documented the tear down going too far by right for that kind of permit, a stop work order was posted. DOB sent out an inspector who put a stop work order and stopped the work. And then mysteriously, DOB sent a different inspector over and took down that stop work order. Right after those of us who saw, where the building stood at that point, it was very obvious that there was a violation. So that was extremely awkward. And frankly, with all due respect to those from DOB who are here, we lost faith in DOB. Then, and Janelle was very helpful.
Nina, sorry to interrupt. Do try to summarize as quickly as possible because we've got these other cases.
I just wanted to get that loss of faith in there, because that really colors our whole relationship, as you can imagine. Eventually, the same inspector who tore it down was ordered to come back, and he put it back up again. So, I mean, and he's still on our case. He's still assigned to this builder. So anyway, second plan was put up, extremely large. And what it did is it moved the whole building forward from where it was towards the sidewalk at a setback that was equivalent to the narrowest building on that side of the street, which by code is allowed. But this, again, it's a semicircle. It's not parallel lines. So we argue that this is completely out of order. And furthermore, a very large ADU, accessory dwelling unit, as I say, apartment over garage along the alley. Two things there. There's a required setback between the main building and the facing wall of there's a required rear yard of 25 feet. We just heard about those rear yards. Another case, 25 feet of yard, unobstructed yard all along the breadth of the back, between the back of the main building and the facing wall of the ADU. We do not think that exists. And so those are Michael Zeldin and Councilmember Janice's office have been trying to get to the bottom of this. An original opinion was issued, but we did not collectively get all the answers to our questions, which make us still doubt that in fact we've heard the whole story. Yep. That's
Great.
it.
And Nina, if that's super. I know, Janelle, you have your hand raised. What I'd like to do, if I could, though, is get our residents into this, because we have a hard stop on this part of the program at 7:45, and I don't want the time to elapse in conversing just about 34th place. Yeah. But I'd also like to do that, and Janelle, we'll come back and do kind of a summary wrap up and get your take on this. I'd like to go to, if you don't mind, Nina, and
I have one more quick point.
Okay.
And Janelle, I'm probably speaking for you too here. Janelle and her team represent inspections of construction that has been approved by the overall Department of Buildings, including zoning. But the inspectors are not in charge of making the codes or approving plans. They're enforcing what has been permitted. And I believe, Ms. Janelle, that's what you were referring to in your response. So we are actually at this point, we've taken a complaint to zoning, the overall Department of Buildings and Zoning, those who interpreted the codes in approving this plan. We do have worries and questions already about inspection of what's being done, but I'll leave that. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Nina. If you let me share my screen, Commissioner Gore, I want to show a picture of 2717 Tennyson so that folks in the room have an idea. Yeah, Commissioner Ferguson.
Just on process. So I was wondering, we're hearing from neighbors, we're hearing from DOB. Have the property owners of record been notified and invited about to this meeting about their properties?
About this particular meeting, no, but we've had the owner of the property at on 34th Place and on 30th in various conversations that I've hosted with DOB and the residents. So the developer of both 34th Place and the 30th Street houses has been in conversation with the neighbors.
But they did not have an opportunity to come here and talk about what, okay.
No, the limited time tonight. I think this is setting the stage for what more we need to do on this topic and bring them in. I think that's
no, Bruce, the developer was here before the ANC.
Well, he was before the develop. We can talk about this, Michael. I mean, it's an important point to get their perspective. I take Commissioner Ferguson's point on it.
But all I'm saying is that they were here and they did present on 27th.
Right. All right. Bob Sheffield, 2717 Tennyson. This is another situation that seems intractable that we've been working with Department of Buildings on with various people's help, including, again, Councilmember Louis George's office. I'm going to pull up on the screen.
The picture that's worth 1,000 words. Huh? Yeah.
Okay. So just for everybody, many of you have gone by this house. It's near the intersection of Oregon and Tennyson. Mr. Sheffield can address this in great depth and detail. I'll let him do that. It has sat now in a vacant and blighted status for nearly a year. And with that, Bob, go ahead and give us the short narrative. Give us the summary version because we have to get to the 30th Street properties as well.
Yeah, there may be some permitting problems with this one, as were alluded to with the other one, because the permit describes 2 stories and you can see 3 very clearly there. Furthermore, it has a basement. Usually that's not it's permitted as a basement house with 2 floors. Well, it has 3 right there in front of you, but that's not my big issue. This house has looked just like that picture since September of 2022. This process started in February of 2021. Due to Bruce's great intervention, we've gotten a lot of people involved. I really appreciate Councilmember Louis George's interest in it. I appreciate all the responses from DOB, but nobody seems to be in control of the overall issue. And my question, and the question of the dozens of people who stop me in my front yard every time and say, what's going on with this house, is how long will this be tolerated? I know from investigations I've done that the owner, I have great compassion for him, but his businesses are all bankrupt. He doesn't have the money to finish this house. He owes $66,566.33 in taxes. I can assure you it will not be paid. So my question is, when do you draw a line on this? Nobody every time Bruce has sent a nice request, they've said, we can't do anything. Everything looks fine. We did the inspection. There's nothing further to be done. Does that mean this stands here indefinitely? I surely hope not. What I really would like to know is, when does he have to pay the taxes, or when does he have to finish it before somebody says either finish it or sell it to somebody who can? That's my request.
So just to fill a little bit behind that, and again, I respect that when we have petitioned the Department of Buildings to do inspections, they have done inspections. The issue here is, as Mr. Sheffield is describing, that the unpaid tax liability is not the Department of Buildings' responsibility, right? It's the Office of Revenue's responsibility. And in the adjudication of non-payment of taxes, there's an elaborate, long process with understandably, due opportunity given to the party in question to make payment or make arrangements for payment. Meanwhile, though, the property sits and it's deteriorating by the week. And at some point, it's going to be impossible to finish this property because it will have degraded to the point where it can't be finished. And that's what we're concerned about. And of course, neighbors walk by, they look at it, they write to me and they wonder what's going on. And Mr. Sheffield and his wife live right next door. So they're bearing the brunt of this. So this is another one of the problematic cases in the neighborhood that does not seem to have any immediate resolution. It's difficult, I know. And Janelle and Mr. Brown, you may want to respond to this as well, but just hang on. I want to get to the properties on 30th Street because no set of properties generated more response, more complaints to me from constituents than these. So I just want to address those. And Claudia Russell, who is around the corner on Nebraska and was very helpful in taking a look at potential building code violations. She's an architect. She ran it all to ground, just as Nina Dodge has done on 34th Place and Bob Sheffield has done on Tennyson, ordinary residents who have taken it upon themselves to dig into the particulars and help us understand what's going on so that we, commission, in this case, commissioner, can represent the case to DOB in the city and say, give us a bit of help. So let me pull up this as well in terms of, hop out of this. Might have hit the wrong thing to share the screen on this, Lisa. I don't know if I can. One can share at a time, multiple parties. So you've enabled me to share, right?
Yep.
Okay. It should be coming up.
I think it's that needs to come.
Well, I'll try to pull it up. Our time's limited, but what I want, let me just describe 30th Street to people. Any of you who've lived in that area, this is just off of Utah on 30th Street, near the intersection of Rittenhouse in Utah and 30th. So if you're going north on Utah at that intersection, you turn right. These houses are just on the left. A bungalow sat on a double lot for years and years and years. The two lots had not been declared taxable, independently taxable, buildable properties until 2021, when the owner wished to sell and went to the zoning administrator and was able to secure that circumstance to have both of those properties be declared taxable, buildable lots. The properties then sold for $1.4 million. They've been developed by the same developer on 34th Place that Nina Dodge was referring to, that Michael Zeldin has dealt with. And they've gone up on lots, only one of which is conforming, or neither is conforming. And they are colossal structures that have been not so affectionately dubbed by the neighbors as the Twin Towers. They bear no resemblance in architecture, style, scope, so forth, to anything around them. And the larger issue here is not just what can be done with respect to a vacant and blighted property or a demolition versus a raise, but also when property development is so out of scale with the neighborhood and the neighbors bring this to our attention, what can we do about it? It's a question that we talked to DOB going back a year. Claudia Russell has looked into it. Claudia, please address, but succinctly, what you've done and some of the issues that we've confronted.
Okay.
And speak directly into the mic.
Okay.
And loudly.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great. I have not been in these houses. I have not been on the property. I have only been on the alley and the street. So these are these observations. The first thing is two non-conforming lots. Already they look out of scale. Second thing is that what was presented as permitted drawings doesn't look like what was built. They're very different. There's a roof structure on both of them that were never in the drawings. The materials aren't the same. But the bigger issue that we've talked about in every one of these is where you measure to. If you measure to the foundation, the developers are very savvy. They build outboard of the foundation with their finishes. So the finishes on these houses are 3, 4, 5 inches outboard of the foundation, which makes them a much bigger house in square footage as well as in setbacks. And so that's a real fundamental question, because all of these were measured to a foundation. The other thing that's really critical to me is the fact that these images, this is what was on the drawings and this was what was built. It's dramatic. And is anyone looking at that? The other thing is
These are the houses.
yes. Also, there are decks that were filled in. There are decks that weren't counted. There are, so that the square footage, so for lot coverage is different than what they have in the documents. And within the documents itself, they'll have a zoning calculation for lot coverage, but then when you go to each floor, it's not the same dimension or not the same amount of information. The roof terrace, is different by 100 square feet. So we've got that aspect. And then I think it's very important to look at what the definition of a cellar is, meaning CELLER. Is the fact of the matter is that this is 3 stories from the front and 4 stories from the rear. And if you start looking at the definition of a cellar, there are very clear definitions that do not appear to be fully vetted.
Actually cantilevered over the property so that it doesn't touch the ground. Now, there's a 40% lot coverage restriction in the district. You can't occupy more than 40% of the lot. Anyone walking around these properties from the front around to the alley in the back and looking at them just cannot believe they do not occupy more than 40% of the lot. Completely defies your imagination when you see them. But the trick was done, the technique, the design, it was legal. It was to essentially don't touch the ground on the right side of the house. And therefore, you're not technically occupying the property, except the house sits over it, even though there's a space underneath. So there are so many things about the properties that have been feared. Now, let me just mention a couple of quick anecdotes to give you a little more color and texture on this. The house that you see to the right, the little side hall brick colonial, was owned by Tony Kornheiser, the fairly well-known sports commentator, and the house just past that is a 4 square where he lived. Given current neighbor notification, he was the only neighbor that the developer had to consult because this sits on an alley, a side alley and a rear alley. The Kornheiser family hired a lawyer when they realized this development was coming about, engaged the developer, sought to reach some kind of an accommodation, failed. So they sold the houses and moved. Tony called me about 2 months ago and he said, we haven't spoken, but I just wanted to check in with you about 6116, 6118, 30th Street. What's going on there? And I told him what the situation was. And he said, and I tell you this story somewhat tongue in cheek, he said, if you can get those 2 properties torn down, I'll buy the lot, I'll build a house on it, and I'll move back. Just to let you know, neighbors behind, both of the neighbors on the alley behind, one wrote to me today to say that she couldn't be here, but she wanted me to convey her concern about the fact now, behind the house on the left is an accessory dwelling unit. That's 2 stories. in addition to the house. So the entire thing occupies, again, it defies the entire lot for all intents and purposes. And that's what she's now looking at. And they're so tall that the houses that are on Utah over here and the ones on 31st Street behind have the folks that will move in, whom we'll welcome as new neighbors, of course, graciously, looking down onto their properties. So these are textbook examples of what I would call overdevelopment that is nonetheless legal. So when we think about what we can do about this, we're looking at improved neighbor notification to give neighbors an opportunity to weigh in. Currently, it's only the adjacent neighbor that enjoys any right, and that's merely to get involved if there's going to be excavation near the property line. There, it's quite restricted. Otherwise, the neighborhood has no say in this. It's by right development, which we respect, property owner rights. But the neighborhood nonetheless is concerned about where things are going if this kind of development continues. So just to let you know, we wanted to bring this to the awareness of the community. We're going to be looking further at how to address this. Commissioner Zeldin and I will be on this, on neighbor notification, and then continue to work with the Department of Buildings to resolve 2717 Tennyson for sure in 34th place. With that said, Janelle, I want to come back to you and Mr. Brown, if you'd like to offer any comments on this. Again, we appreciate your being on the call.
Hello, all. This is Janelle Williams from the Department of Buildings. I want to thank Bruce and especially Nina and a lot of the constituents for staying on us. As you know, that we have to be an agency in which we respond to complaints because we honestly don't have the capacity to go out and police. And so we appreciate your due diligence with staying on these properties. And to Nina's point, we can only enforce what the law and the code allows. As it relates to 6004, yes, the developer completed a raise that was not permitted. And I have been a staunch advocate for our agency to revoke permits in that case. And that was done. We revoked the permits for 6008. We required the developer to apply for new permits, which changed the setbacks of that property. But again, until things are built that violate those permits and violate those setbacks, we aren't able to enforce, and that's not where the property is as it currently stands in construction. We've been out, DDOT has come out as it relates to the urban forestry and trees that are in place, and they've made some additional requirements that weren't in their initial review of the property that are now being adhered to by the developer. As it relates to 6116 and 6118 30th Street, we've been out. We've been out consistently to inspect to ensure that the property meets the current zoning regulations as well as the lot occupancy. It's something that we can certainly go back out and re-verify, but as it currently stands, they are compliant. And it's not something that we currently have the power to say that they aren't within lines of zoning regulations.
Right. Yep. Thank you, Janelle. I appreciate that. And we're going to have to wrap up. But Commissioner Zeldin, comments from you or questions?
Well, yes, my observations are two. One is these twin towers occupy more than 40% of the lot coverage. I don't understand how that's legal. Second, on 34th place, I just am confused, Janelle. They were given permission to build forward toward the street, which is inconsistent with every other house on that cul-de-sac. And as we read the regulations, they are not in conformity with those regulations, at least in spirit and likely in law. And same is true with the ADU. And we don't understand why it has to first be built. So we face what we are looking at here and then go into a tear down. It's very obvious what is going on there. And so we remain confused about it. And we'd like to continue to have this conversation before these things get built and make it almost impossible to deal with.
There has to be a violation. They have excavation in their permit, which means that the house can still maintain the setback. And as of right now, the excavation doesn't mean that where they're actually building will violate the setback. That excavation could be hardscaping, which would be in line with their permit. And again, I don't want to argue for what everyone could potentially believe is a bad actor, but it's like you have to wait for someone to actually commit a violation before you preemptively arrest them.
Yeah, well, except the foundation is there and you can see it, you can just see it. And I'm happy to come out there when I finish my
Michael,
family
I don't
business and
disagree
come out.
with you. I haven't been in this a long time, but I have seen developers certainly skirt the law. And I'm somebody who wants compliance, and I want
All right, well,
everyone on this
let's
call
plan
to understand
to
that.
meet. Okay, let's plan to meet there. And you and I and the neighbors can look at the foundation and look at where it stands in relation to the enclave of houses and look at the ADU. And you can tell me whether that meets code.
Okay, we can do that.
Okay, I've got, dealing with my mom's death, and we're back sometime in the next 2 weeks, and I'll do the best I can, but Bruce is a very capable surrogate on every single thing here. Not surrogate, he's a principal.
So that's great. I'll look forward to that. There are two people who've had their hands raised. John Higgins, former commissioner here. John, please go ahead. You're muted, John.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, as I mentioned before, we live in Norwood, and we have a lot of nice greenery around here, but the house on Tennyson is not one of those sites. Since we seem to be limited or perhaps stymied on the building code stuff here, would there be anything related to the bankruptcy of the owner and having a court order it disposed of on a distressed sale basis? Is that a possibility of resolving this?
Right. That's something we certainly can look into, and it's obviously a sensitive matter, but we are mindful that it is the jurisdiction of the Office of Revenue, and it has, of course, it's outside the purview of the Department of Buildings. And it's, again, as I said, is part of the challenge that we face in addressing this, that it's a multidimensional problem. But yes. Yep. Thank you, John. Mary Rouse, you have your hand up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to call your attention to 3711 Livingston Street. I believe that's another house in the same vein as these that may be the same developer. Claudia may be able to confirm that. I'm not sure, but I just wanted to state that that is within the boundary of the proposed historic district. And it's exactly this kind of out of scale development that a historic district will address in the proposed area. And we just encourage neighbors to get information on why an historic district will help control this. We'll have a design review process. Neighbors will be part of it. They will not be left out and feel frustrated and have no answers. There is a process that's undertaken throughout the city in 37 other historic districts. And I hope that people will learn more about this. And I'm happy to share any information with anyone who wants to contact me.
Great. We need to.
I can confirm that 3711 Livingston is the same developer as 34th Place and the Twin Towers. And I went online and looked at the design, and it's another one of these apartment style buildings.
Thank you.
Great. So we need to bring this segment to a close. Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Any other members of the public want to weigh in, make a comment or a question? But quickly, please, if you would. Yeah. And speak directly into the mic loudly. Thanks.
Real quick, this seems to be a repetition of the problem we had with 5513, where there was cheating on whether the basement level was above ground or not. I think this is a problem for the city council to address the code itself and reform the code.
Okay, thank you. And just tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Jane Brondell. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jane Brondell. I live off of Reno and Military. And we have a house behind us at 3920 Military that I think is overbuilt. But my question is that twice I have contacted Department of Buildings and after I looked up the permit. And I think they went out there, but I never hear anything back. The second time was maybe a month ago. The problem is they took up a lot of, I think, more than 40% of the space. And I could ask a million questions about what counts as building, like the humongous swimming pool 3 feet from our property line because there's no alley there. But mainly my question is, after the second time that I contacted Department of Buildings, and they got right back to me via email and said they would send an inspector out. The very next day, I get an email from them saying, how did we do? And I wrote back and I said, how do I know how you did when I don't know who went there and what they found? And I never heard anything back. Am I doing something wrong, or how do we proceed with this in order to, if you care enough to contact Department of Buildings, should you not have the right to know what the inspector found? I can understand why the inspector didn't knock on my door and take me to someone else's private property. But on the other hand, I do think they should knock on your door or send an email or a letter saying, we sent Inspector so-and-so out on such and such a date at such and such a time. These were your concerns, and this is what he or she found.
Right. Good point. Let's let Janelle Williams from DOB respond. Janelle.
Hi. So the way that illegal construction inspections work a little differently than tenant inspections. When you're the tenant of a property, you automatically have a right to know what happened with that inspection. An illegal construction inspection works a little differently because you have no vested interest, meaning you don't live in this property and you're not the owner of this property. You do, as a public member, have a right to know, meaning you have to fill out a FOIA request to find out what happened with that inspection. But initially what happens is you fill out the inquiry, we go out, we inspect, and we're sending you a closed ticket and survey based on the fact that we did go out and satisfy that inquiry. If you want to know more about what happened with that illegal construction inspection, the onus is on you to then fill out a FOIA to find out what was the results of that inspection, which is different from a housing property maintenance complaint in which you are the tenant.
We gotta move on.
Yeah, we'll follow up. Janelle, thank you very much. We're really pressed for time. Thanks very much for the comment. Yeah, we'll talk afterwards and I'll follow up with you for sure. Thank you, Janelle, for participating. Mr. Brown, if you were on the call, I want to also thank Nina Dodge for her explanation of the situation on 34th Place, Bob Sheffield for Tennyson, Claudia Russell, 30th Street. Again, hats off to neighbors who take hours and hours and hours of their time to dig into these cases and research what's going on so the rest of us can petition the city and try to seek some kind of redress. And we'll be following up on these issues. I just wanted today to, with Michael Zeldin's help, to bring this to the full commission's attention and air it publicly. Okay, thank you.
So next on the agenda, and we are going to have to get through this fairly quickly, is discussion and possible vote on the Lafayette Field Resolution. Michael, can you do this in 5 minutes? Or do you think we need to move this to the next meeting?
No, I'd like to get it done, although I can't, I have, as you know, I'm dealing with my family issue around my mom's death, and I'm supposed to be in a meeting at 8 o'clock tonight. And I know we got started late because of technical difficulties.
Yeah.
What this is, and Laura Finney is on and can fill in all of the background.
If you can give us
what it is that the city has been promising since 2015 to repair the Lafayette ball field, to seed and maintain the grass field. We have learned recently that they are apparently planning on doing a turf field there without notification to the community. And what we're asking in this resolution is, one, that they honor their commitment to maintain the grass field, and that, two, if they have any alternative plans, that they not act on them until they are fully vetted by the community, that they come to the ANC and they hold community meetings and we get the chance to talk about this. When Janice asked them about this, they basically said, it's none of your business. And we just are lying in the dark about what's going on here. And so this resolution just says, can you honor your commitment? And if you're not going to honor your commitment, come forth and tell us why.
Okay. Commissioners, do y'all have any questions on the resolution? Commissioner Lynch?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit. We talked about this a little bit on email, but I would move to strike just one sentence, and otherwise I would vote for the resolution. And the sentence is, even when specifically asked applicant on behalf of the lower ball field, the Lafayette School time to reach out to some agencies stating in an email that she had no mechanism to contact the city. I just think it doesn't necessarily help move forward the goal of the resolution, and I think it's something that we probably do that.
Commissioner Zeldin, do you accept that friendly amendment?
If it gets us to the end of this thing, I'll accept it. Though I have to tell you, it's a true statement and it belongs in there.
Okay.
And like I said on email, I don't doubt it's true. I just think that it's beside the point in terms of addressing the issue. That's all.
Yeah, I think the truth sets us free in this case.
Okay. Any other commissioners have questions?
So I understand. Michael, are you accepting that as a friendly amendment?
If that's what gets us to closure on this thing, I'll accept it as a friendly amendment, though it doesn't seem prudent, but I'll accept it.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Zeldin.
All right. Any other commissioner questions? So friendly amendment accepted. Any community questions on this resolution or what, Commissioner Zeldin? Come to the mic. Come to the mic. And I'm gonna keep you to a minute.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the school community was promised this in March of 2016. At the DGS meeting, it was slide number 7 to that community presentation. And just because the field doesn't look in good shape now doesn't give the city reason to renege on its promise. They never installed it correctly. They never maintained it correctly, but the field didn't fail. The people did. Grass can work. And we don't have a budget for artificial turf either. They're making massive cuts at the school and to lay off teachers at the same time putting in something carcinogenic that's against the wishes of the community that was promised. It would be really wrong. So thank you.
Thank you. And let me go to former Commissioner Madak.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to reiterate kind of what Laura said. In my whole history with dealing with Carrie, she doesn't really care what the community thinks. We had exhaustive communications with the community about the field and the park when they're under renovations. And that's why the park is like a Rock Creek extension. Everybody wanted natural grass. Everybody wanted natural themes. And Carrie didn't want to have anything to do with it. And when I spoke to her about maintaining it, she says, I have no sway with DGS on that. Well, that is incorrect. That doesn't even make common sense. She's the principal of the school. I called DGS and they said she'd get priority on any maintenance issues that were there. So she just doesn't like to cooperate with the community. Has kind of a disdain for the community. And she didn't like that the community got kind of overrode what she wanted because they really wanted, this was a big to-do, exhausted. I mean, it was very exhausting to go through it. It was supposed to be a natural grass field done properly. It wasn't done properly and DGS never followed up on the warranties in the field. That's all I want to say, that the community almost explicitly wanted natural grass.
Right.
Thank
you. This is why, Peter, that sentence, which I would think you should withdraw your request for a friendly amendment. This is why that sentence was in there, because we've been fighting with the school principal around this issue for 4 years. And you may not think it's helpful, but it is the history that we've had with that principal and this thing, and it needs to be called out.
Yeah. Let me go to one last community question.
Yes, I'm Mary Gay Sprague. I live on 33rd Street, 2 doors down from the field. I think this resolution is critical because I believe there will be very deep ecological and health opposition to this proposal for artificial turf. And I am astounded that this could possibly go through without community input. I lived through the Lafayette reconstruction. My house shook and cracked. I didn't say a peep because I support the benefits to the community of a vibrant school. This is the first time I have ever stood up at an ANC to say, you have to listen to the neighbors. This is just wrong. Nobody, I don't say nobody, I think many, many people in the community will be strongly opposed to artificial turf at the Lafayette Pointer Park. And I would appreciate the resolution to give the community a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just add, piggyback on, Commissioner, that was the last community comment. We have to move on. Last community comment.
Me or?
You, last community comment. Let me
I've gotta
finish
go.
first. On Commissioner Zeldin, I'm going to ask you to reconsider your friendly amendment. And I know, and Commissioner Madak, thank you for being on and for your service to the commission and working with Lafayette. We have had multiple dealings with the principal. My son went to Lafayette. I had multiple dealings with her personally, so I know her very well. And what you communicated is very true. We should not fail to disclose the full level of cooperation that we have gotten from the highest official at that school. Now, whether or not it serves us or serves us not, as Michael said, that's just the facts of the matter. If the principal wanted to cooperate with us on this, she had multiple times to do that. So I am opposed to you taking that out of the motion, the amendment. It's up to you. I'm going to vote for this resolution, or whether or not it's not going to change my vote, but I'm just telling you my sentiment.
Will Peter Lynch, will you withdraw your request?
It's up to you to accept it. The burden is not on Peter. He's offered a friendly amendment, and it's up to you to accept it or not.
I'm asking him first, will he withdraw his friendly amendment? I can't hear him if he's talking.
You gotta speak up, Peter.
Try this.
One of the things that we have been challenged with on this ANC is being tactful and respectful to everybody in the community. I understand that maybe she was not helpful in getting this field across. I am with you on the field. I just don't know if it's central to the purpose of getting a grass field there. And I don't think it's necessary. And I think there it is. So.
Okay. Let me go to community and then we'll come back to you, Commissioner.
I've got to go, Lisa.
Well, Michael, we need to take the vote.
I know, but if we're getting just redundant comments.
We need to vote. Okay. Please make it short. Please.
Will do.
Thank
My
you.
name's Yuri Blazer, 3218 Oliver Street.
Can you speak louder? Can't hear you.
3218 Oliver Street. I lived through the Lafayette renovation as well. I've been there for about 10 years now, a little over. I can recall I was very involved we were in the envelope. And I can recall when that field, when the community said, let's make it grass, right? DGS, DPR both said, we do not have the funds to maintain a grass field. The community still pushed forward and said, that's what we want. And this is what we have. We have a dirt patch, right? With holes in it that doesn't drain. It's terrible. My understanding is that there's a fiscal cliff coming for the district, right? The fiscal year 24, 25, DCPS budget is coming down $2 million for Lafayette, right? Spending money to build another grass field so that we can redo it in 10 years and fight about it again does not make sense. If it's going to be, I support the resolution, the community needs to be involved. That said, if we're just going to buy ourselves another headache, we should think long and hard about that. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So let me just say, I'm getting ready to call for the vote. Michael, in the way, just so the commissioners, Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I, with all due respect to my good friend, Commissioner Lynch, I believe civility is important, but I think accountability is as important. I've heard so much here that I am not going to vote for this resolution if you accept the friendly amendment.
Okay. And the way that works, just for the commissioners, Michael, we will vote on your motion as it stands. If that passes or fails, then we can come back to the request for the amendment. But the motion that is proceeding and the motion that is on the floor is your motion and the resolution as stated. So I just want
Okay.
to make sure the commissioners and the audience understands that. Okay, so I'm gonna call for the vote because I know you have to go. The motion is on the resolution as Michael has presented it to us without any friendly amendments. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, raise your hand. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Peter Lynch. I'm sorry, I've got to miss the rest of the meeting. I've got to go.
I
with
understand.
my family.
Thank you for staying. Thank you for your
Okay.
patience. I know you had to
Okay,
go.
thanks, everybody.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna go until we get, what do you want to do? What you start, tell us what you want to do.
Look, I mean, there's a reality of pulling down all this stuff and closing down the meeting. And if we press the the reason we moved it back to 6 o'clock is because we get into trouble with DPR, and I don't want to bust all this equipment trying to race it upstairs. I suggest that we, notwithstanding the fact that we said, I think we need to talk about a special meeting for the historic district next week and see whether we can agree on a date. I think we need to talk about an administrative meeting to try to straighten out a bunch of things, including my getting help setting up that equipment on a regular basis. And so I would suggest that if we can land a special meeting, we put off the Commissioner Sherman's Civic Core RFP until next week, discussion of that, because we're going to have a debate about that. I think we need to put off, I mean, I don't know what we do about oversight testimony. I mean,
Commissioner Goslin, Commissioner Gore.
Sure.
I think one of the things that helped us tremendously is that we got a in-person administrative meeting on the books within the next 2 weeks so that we can iron out certain things that we need to do going forward. Several commissioners have talked about this from the very beginning of this term, and I think it would be a great idea to connect everybody on a one-on-one in-person basis so that we can iron out a whole slew of issues that are before us right now.
That's not a debate. We have that on schedule here. The issue that we're dealing with right now is the agenda. We have 2 topics on the agenda: Civic Core, which is a discussion and possible vote, and upcoming performance testimony. We have roughly 15 minutes to finish this meeting. So what Commissioner Goslin has asked Commissioner Sherman is if you want to postpone the Civic Core RFP resolution. If you don't, we will try to noodle through it. If you don't want to postpone it, we'll try to noodle through it. If you do, we'll move it to the next meeting.
I'm perfectly happy to move it to the next meeting. We just need to schedule the next meeting.
Yep.
And with 7-day notice, we'd want to probably agree tonight, if we could, to say that we're going to do it a week from whenever, tonight, tomorrow. And then we'll notice it publicly to the community and make sure that it's on the books. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, let me move through the agenda. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda, discussion of upcoming performance oversight testimony. So we have, Commissioner Goslin has gone through this pretty extensively. We have 3 committees that Commissioner Goslin felt that we need to, maybe submit testimony for. They're both coming up on February 28th, 2 of them, and one is on the 29th, DMPED, DC Public School, and Department of Energy Environment Committee on Transportation. Do you want to add what you were considering in terms of testimony?
Well, I've submitted a very, very sketchy letter because we missed the February 9th oversight hearing for DDOT, and we have so many issues with DDOT. But that's just personal. That was just a personal letter of mine. So because we didn't have time to vote. I mean, it seems to me that all of us agree we need to talk. We need to speak on the issue of the DCPS proposed cuts. I think Commissioner Lynch has been strong on that issue. DOEE is important to us because of, if for no other reason than because of maintenance of the bioretention basins, those that exist now and the many that are proposed for the the city, the rest of the community. So
How long do you know how long the records are open?
well, basically, I asked Kevin Whitfield, who's the committee, the staff person for the committee that has oversight on DDOT, and he just said submit a letter. So I mean, but you know, our problem right now is we need to have a. So I don't know. I didn't ask whether we could like have a post-hearing commission vote to submit. So I just don't know whether that takes something, you know, different than, so I don't know.
So I have a couple of questions. One, in terms of commission position on a commission statement that a commissioner would draft and everybody would sign off on. And then, of course, the provision for individual commissioner statements, if in fact there is an interest by the whole commission. So for example, for the Department of Energy and Environment, I will be wish to submit, we can talk about it now, whether or not the full commission would want to be behind this, a statement on natural versus artificial turf. This is a huge issue in my single member district, given the plans by Murray to put in 4 acres of artificial turf. And we just heard about the concerns regarding Lafayette. There have been, and I won't go into detail now, but just to tag to the point about natural turf, there have been very significant technological advances in natural turf fields that I don't believe the community as a whole, the city even realizes. I'd like to bring those to the awareness of the oversight committees, and also then talk about the rising concerns around the presence of PFAS and artificial turf, which has many of my neighbors very concerned.
Commissioner, I accept that there are a lot of substantive issues. We've got a procedural issue.
No, a procedural. How would you like to do this? I'm happy to submit my own testimony. Or we could do it.
What about the following, that on these matters, we, for example, on DOEE, you draft a personal statement, get it in, and we take this up at the next meeting. We find out how long the record is open. And if it's possible, we would take up your personal statement and might back it up with a commission vote. That way we can move this off, because nobody's drafted testimony that we can consider tonight.
Right.
For a vote. So we're basically we've been caught short here.
Got it. Got it. There's another thing, which is the committee of the whole, which is the issue concerning the way the zoning commission didn't notify us with respect to the set down hearing for the proposed amendments. So I think that's something that we need to, I know this may be Greek to many of you sitting here in the room and even some folks online, but that's something I think we need to call attention to.
Yeah, and I'd just say I talked to OP today on that very subject.
Okay.
They expect to issue the notice.
This meeting has about 10 minutes left, and then I'll be free.
Okay, is it okay if I take?
Mute your microphones, folks. Okay, go on.
They basically expect to issue the notice for hearing this week. So it would be the end of April so we need to, I mean, if there's some question about whether they properly let us know about this, we ought to raise it right away.
Right.
In any case, I think this is the way, as a procedural matter, we just ought to hope that the gate is still open.
Yeah,
And
I
that we
agree.
take this up along with Commissioner Sherman's Civic Core RFP resolution
At the
next meeting,
special
so
meeting.
that we ought to now debate when the next next meeting is.
I just want to make sure, do we have any announcements from, agencies?
Thank you all for the
You're welcome.
opportunity. I know you all are running very close to time, so I will make this very brief. I have a few updates from the mayor's office, and I wanted to first invite the community to engage with the mayor around the budget. I know a lot of conversations have been happening around budget for the coming fiscal year. And so the mayor, if you would go to budget budget.dc.gov. There are opportunities on the website for engagement for upcoming budget engagement forums, one of which will be a senior budget engagement teletown hall on Wednesday, February 28th at 11 a.m. And I'll briefly give you a call-in number if you'd like to take it, but you can also find this information at budget.dc.gov. And that call-in number for the senior budget engagement teletown hall is 844-881-1314. That was 844-881-1314. And there's also going to be a budget engagement forum on the 28th of February at 5:30 in person at Brookland Middle School. Like all of these events, you can watch online at mayor.dc.gov/live. And then second, I will be remiss to say that DC Council voted to pass legislation for the Secure DC Omnibus Bill in recent weeks, and the mayor is calling on all of us in the community to come out and show your support for the legislation on March 5th at 10 a.m. at the John A. Wilson Building, 10:30 rather, at the John A. Wilson Building. DC Council will be voting on the final legislation, and we want to support that mostly because it gives us the opportunity to hold criminals accountable. It gives us the opportunity to give more resources to MPD, and it also level sets some of previous legislation that we know is not working in the city. So that gives us a couple of opportunities to bolster some facts. There's a big misinformation campaign going on about this legislation. So the first thing I'll just briefly say is that hijabs, headscarves, wearing those masks out in public is not going to be criminalized. It's literally persons who are wearing ski masks with hoodies that are in areas that police may want to stop just to ask questions. This gives them that leverage and that opportunity. It's not some wholesale opportunity for MPD to bust out and say, hey, why do you have a scarf on and you're now criminalized? So that's not happening. Likewise, with regard to the threshold for retail theft. We know that retail theft around the city has been an issue. Right now, this legislation calls for a $500 threshold where MPD could then go ahead and start to criminalize some of those behaviors. I think there's an amendment that wants to raise that level up to 1,000. The mayor is asking that we keep it at 500. And so I welcome you to find more about the information for Secure DC. You can Google it, Secure DC and Omnibus Bill, and you'll find a host of information. But we welcome you to be in conversation with us about it, be in conversation with your council member, and also join us on Tuesday, March 5th at 10:30 at the John A. Wilson Building. I'll stop there, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Let's see. Any other agency announcements? Elias? You could go ahead. You're on mute. Okay, while he's trying to come off of mute, I just want to remind seniors that there is a notice from the Public Service Commission about Potomac, so PEPCO, and a rate increase. So the rate increase is going to go up approximately about $6.18 a month. Might not sound a lot, but for our seniors, that can be a lot. There's 3 community hearings, March 27th, April 2nd, and April 3rd. So just be on the lookout for that. And those are your opportunities to go before PEPCO to talk about that rate increase. Elias, are you with us? Okay. I'm gonna ask that we move the ANC committee and task force reports off in terms.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Apologies, it was not letting me unmute.
We got time. We just got
very brief updates. This is Elias Benda from Councilmember Fruman's office. We have our upcoming workday in the ward, Thursday, March 28th at Compass Coffee in Spring Valley. Sign up for our newsletter to receive updates on that. Councilmember Fruman sent a letter to Mayor Bowser on February 22nd with an updated request to put forward a refined plan to advance Connecticut Avenue multimodal safety improvement project. And this is the last week of performance oversight hearings. We have DGS government witnesses on Thursday and DME, DCPS, and OSSI on Friday. We know that there are a lot of concerns over the initial school budget. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our office with any questions or comments regarding that. Finally, DGS and DPR have said that the Wilson Pool should be reopening this spring. They have the HVAC materials on site and are doing repairs as we speak. So we're going to be pressing them for a planned reopening timeline at the upcoming hearing. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna ask that we move forward with commission business. Secretary of Treasury reports? No? Okay, so we have the special public meeting for the 4th. Are we still on for that?
Well, I know that Commissioner Ferguson can't make it, but I just don't think you can make it the 5th. And I do think that both, Commissioner Ferguson.
Yeah, I think it'd be great to pick a date further out so residents get more notice, but also I believe the historic Chevy Chase DC has an event March 4th evening, and that would conflict with a lot of people who are interested in that topic. So I think it would behoove us so we give residents more time to get their questions ready and put it further on the calendar, because a lot of people, their calendar for next week is already booked, but if we pick a month out, that's easier for people to put on their calendar.
I'll follow the lead of the commission. I know that the Chevy Chase Conservancy, the proponents of the new historic district, want a meeting sooner rather than later. I think that in arguing for Zach's position, both at their presentation last week and in my speaking to the Historic Preservation Office, they are saying that this thing won't come up before the board before late summer or fall, at least in part because they don't even have enough members, confirmed members of the board, to make their quorum at the moment. So I mean, there is a good argument for putting it off. I do think that the debate has started, so that putting it off while it may extend into the summer, putting it off very long is not smart. So maybe later in this month, March.
And I think there are just so many questions that one meeting is this a tip of the iceberg? And this impacts our small businesses differently. This impacts our condos and apartment buildings. So I think we should have dedicated special meetings for all those issues and more. So I'm happy to get one on the books to get it started, but.
Okay, so now we run into the following problem. I'm happy to recede on the issue of a special meeting for the historic district next week, but we've now moved off Bruce's Civic Core resolution and if we're going to try to hit the window on some of this testimony, do we have a special meeting or do we push this off to March 11th?
May I suggest that we do an administrative to really come in on a lot of these things, try to get hand out and do that in the next week or so?
I have real sympathy for that, Commissioner Lynch. The problem is we can't vote on anything in a
right. We can't take no official action. We can't do nothing.
That's okay. I think talk about bad things where we're not running up against the clock. We're all together with our in front of us. That makes a lot of sense.
So let me just suggest this. If we do, regardless of what meeting we do, we're going to have to notice the public 7 days. Administrative, special, regular meeting. The community has to have that 7-day notice. So we're up against that anyway. We are, and I'm just saying this as from the chair's perspective, we are so far behind on our agenda and on our community business. We are so far behind, and I cannot stress that enough. There are many things that we're trying to get through. We continue to try to pack all these things through on the agenda. I prefer to keep the special meeting date of March 4th. Let's get through some of these agenda items, including Bruce's resolution, including testimony. We have one of the things that, I talked about when I first came on as chair is performance oversight testimony. This is the 2nd year in a row that we've missed it. And that is not good. So I would urge us and strongly recommend we keep March 4th as a special meeting, put as much on the agenda as we can get through. I do not mind putting off HPO, and Zach, you know, this commission has always done multiple meetings. We would never do one meeting on one topic, especially as important as the historic district. And we can develop a schedule and kind of incorporate what Peter is talking about during our admin meeting for some of the later meetings. But right now we have a lot of stuff that we need to get through. So my suggestion is keep March 4th and let's get through some of this agenda.
Okay, Chair, Gore, so should we, I mean, for example, the issue of the parking lots is going to come up. Do we want to move that to March 4th and free up some time on the regular March 11th meeting? I mean,
We can do that.
okay.
And we
I
have
just
time to
want
set
to
that agenda.
alert the commission. CVS is seeking an extension of their special exception to allow them to have a parking lot behind the buildings at the 5500 block of Connecticut. This raises the issue of all of the parking lots on the west side of Connecticut, and actually some on the east, that have very long periods of permission to use them as parking lots. And I think this is an issue that we need to discuss fully, because some of these parking lots really need to be open to the public in a way that they're not now. So it's a big issue. It may not sound like one, but it is going to be a big issue, yet another one. And I would just alert you that later in the month, you know, zoning is going to come up. So I just think that we do have a lot of big issues coming up. So.
Okay.
So just to be clear, we're March 4th, which means we want to notice it tonight.
Today.
So I will do that.
Okay.
A couple won't go out on the Chevy's listserv, but it'll go on other channels tonight.
Right.
So I'll
So
just
just
post a
stay
special
up.
meeting. I'll stay up.
Okay.
A special meeting, well, or I can just say agenda to follow.
We got to put the agenda out there as part of the notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay. So moving from that now, in terms of ANC administrative meeting, we want to schedule that. So remember, we have special meeting on the 4th, regular meeting on the 11th. Do you guys want to do an administrative meeting the week of the 11th or the 18th? Do you want to take a break and go for the week of the 18th, or you want to keep it the week of the 11th? Because we still have enough time to notice it the week of the 11th as well.
I'm for as soon as possible, just to move it forward.
Okay. What about Tuesday the 12th?
Agenda for next week's potential board special meeting. We can use that as an administrative meeting to work out everything going forward. And we, to Zach's point, we give people lead time to understand what we're getting to in the meetings that are coming up.
So I'm gonna say what we said previously. That's not gonna work for us because of the timelines that we're up against with this stuff that is coming up, particularly the performance oversight testimony. That's in 2 days. So that's not gonna work for us. So again, the week, is everyone available the 12th?
Yes,
Okay. 6 o'clock?
fine.
All right, that's it. The 12th at 6 o'clock, admin meeting. Thank you. Virtual.
Commissioner Lynch volunteered to set up all the.
Yeah, if you set up all the IT and do everything. No, yes, if it's. No, we don't, but we will open it up to the community. But we would also, I would suggest us hold it virtual so that it's hybrid. It's a hybrid meeting is what I'm saying.
Well, we're missing so much stuff. We're getting behind the ball on things. We don't email because we don't communicate that. I think if we meet in person, we do that much better. And the whole purpose of having an administrative meeting is so that we don't get behind.
Yeah, but Peter, the community has we have to open it to the community. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. if it's gonna follow the same pattern, we're gonna follow the same pattern with hybrid so that the maximum amount of community members can be there. They have an absolutely right to attend our administrative meeting one way or the other. Okay. So, commissioners, the requirements are the same in terms of notification. And the requirements are the same in terms of the community's ability to participate. And I'm not going as chair, and you guys can vote on who you want as chair next go around. But as chair, I'm not going to cut the community off on an admin meeting. I'm just not going to do that. So I'm just going to make that decision as chair. Okay, so we are going to move on with that discussion. And I list possible agenda items for March 11th. And if we don't have any other things on the agenda for March 11th, commissioners? No.
We have a DCPS at some point that we have to wrap our minds around because of the budget problems. I've had various constituents today write to me about Lafayette's budget.
That's where we're going to take up.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's
good.
what it is.
Oh, okay.
And that's
Okay.
why we got to have a
I didn't
meeting.
understand that. Okay, that's fine.
I've written a letter to be signed by more than 200 people in the community, plus ANC members around the city.
Mhm.
If you'd like to go with it, I put in the commission can, you can send it, you can approve it. It's ties in with resolution that we've already had. Again, this is a place where quick emails are not doing the job. We could have sorted this out in in-person discussions.
Right. Right. So we'll be able to work on that on the 4th. And with that, I'll call the
Yeah, but
the record, we talked about determining how long the record will be open. That's what we talked about. So the record will potentially still be open. And with that, I'm going to call the meeting adjourned at 8:43. I'm going to ask all the people in the audience, if you can, to please take your chairs and put them up. Help us to get going.
And I'd ask
Commis-
fellow commissioners to help me with
Yeah.
with a.
And commissioners, we can carry on the discussion afterwards. Thank you.